All right, let's get right into it. The story of Vampirella and her sister Draculina, at its heart, it's so much more than just a comic book feud. It's really this timeless philosophical battle between two sisters. They were forged in the exact same fire, but they chose totally different ways to handle their scars. It's a classic tale of chaos versus control.
And that brings us to the big question of this whole explainer, right? The one that really connects their crazy supernatural struggle to all of us. How should we wield our own trauma? Do we find a way to master it? Or do we just let it master us?
And Vampirella and Draculina? Well, they're basically two living, breathing answers to that exact question. You've got Vampirella, who becomes the monarch of control. She chooses to master her own nature, her own past. And then you have Draculina, who goes the other way and becomes the paragon of chaos, deciding to be defined and really fueled by her own suffering.
So you have to wonder, how did they get here? They have this shared traumatic past, but instead of uniting them, it just shattered their bond. It sent them down two completely different philosophical paths and, well, set the stage for one epic ideological clash.
And this is so important to get. This isn't just sibling squabbling. It's not a simple good versus evil thing. Their entire conflict is like a physical debate playing out over the very nature of power and the best way to handle profound suffering.
So let's talk about that critical moment, the real turning point where their paths shot off in opposite directions. It all kicked off with this entity that was born from a single emotional choice, an entity that would become the catalyst for their entire war, the demon of resentment. Okay, so here's the breakdown of how this all happened. First, Vampirella hits this new level of power, becoming the Twilight Monarch. In doing that, she sheds her resentment, the part of her that was just reacting to their mother Lilith's manipulations. But that feeling doesn't just disappear. Nope, it actually forms its own parasitic being. And guess who finds this raw, angry power? Her sister Draculina, who makes the fateful choice to just embrace it. This quote, man, it just perfectly sums up Draculina's entire mindset. She looks at what Vampirella did, shedding that resentment, and she doesn't see healing, she sees weakness. To her, her sister just threw away a massive source of power, and she is more than happy to pick it up and claim it for herself. And that's the bottom line here. By merging with this resentment demon, Draculina literally becomes the living incarnation of everything Vampirella chose to leave behind. She is pure, unbridled chaos, a constant walking reminder of the path her sister refused to take. So this philosophical divide, it doesn't just stay in their heads. Oh no, it explodes into a war that spans dimensions. And the prize is these magical shards from their mother's shattered mirror. And you better believe their missions could not be more different. And here you can see that stark contrast. Vampirella, the monarch of control, is on a mission to find these shards and purify them, to heal the chaos their mother spread across reality. Draculina, the paragon of chaos, wants the absolute opposite. She wants to find those same shards, corrupt them even more, and amplify that very chaos.
And this has real practical consequences. While Vampirella is out there trying to heal things, Draculina is basically following her, turning these powerful artifacts into weapons. She creates these little pockets of reality distortion, which forces Vampirella into this impossible choice. Does she save innocent lives, or does she stop her sister? It's a war on two fronts, physical and ideological. Okay, let's drill down into the real core of their argument. Because when these two finally face off, it's way more than a fistfight. It's a fierce philosophical debate. This is the absolute heart of their story: control versus chaos. This table just lays their opposing worldviews out perfectly. When it comes to trauma, Vampirella's whole philosophy is about taking control of your story, mastering your nature. Draculina, she's all about letting suffering define you, constantly reacting to that past pain. And power? Vampirella wields it with precision. Think her blacklight fire. Draculina, fueled by that raw resentment, just unleashes it with zero restraint. And this is Draculina's main accusation. She looks at her sister, this big hero, and just sees a hypocrite. She argues that Vampirella isn't really free at all. She just traded one leash, the one their mother held, for the burden of being a hero. In Draculina's eyes, that's just a different kind of prison. But Vampirella's comeback, delivered through her violet truth gaze, is just as cutting. She flips it right back on her, saying that Draculina is the one who's truly trapped. And why? Because every single thing she does, every surge of power, is just a reaction to the past. She isn't choosing her own path. She's letting her pain choose it for her.
So where does this all end up? I mean, can a path that's fueled by pure, unrestrained chaos actually be sustainable? The climax of their conflict gives us a pretty definitive answer, and it sets the stage for a really fascinating new direction.
In her final battle, Vampirella uses her power not to destroy Draculina, but to purify her. It's an incredible move. She unleashes her black light fire and just purges that parasitic resentment demon from her sister's soul. It's an act of liberation, not annihilation.
And for the very first time, without that demon's influence, Draculina has this moment of just shocking clarity. She finally sees her whole crusade for what it was. It wasn't freedom. It was, in her own words, being a different kind of slave to trauma. Her path was just as much of a prison as the one she accused her sister of being in.
So the conflict doesn't end with a victory lap. It ends with a shared understanding. Vampirella offers a truce, and she acknowledges their whole struggle. She basically looks at Draculina and says, I mastered my chaos. Now it's your turn to master yours. The challenge is officially passed on. So what's next for Draculina? This whole thing doesn't suddenly make her a hero, not at all. Instead, it puts her on this new, much more complex path. She starts a journey of self-realization, trying to integrate her suppressed human side, her Katie persona, and to find her own balance between the chaos she embodies and the control she now knows she needs. She's not a simple villain anymore. She's this fascinating, morally gray anti-villain.
And that leaves us with one last big question that kind of brings it all back to the beginning. The story of these sisters really forces us to ask ourselves, is true freedom really found in having absolute control over every part of ourselves? Or is it found somewhere in that messy middle and the difficult, lifelong job of balancing our own inner chaos?